Hello everyone, welcome to our YouTube channel Saksam Digital Technology. So basically in this video we are just going to learn about measure of dispersion. So in the previous video we are just learning about the descriptive statics. So in the descriptive statics we are learning about measure of central tendency. So in this we are just learning about measure of dispersion. So what is measure of dispersion? We are just learning with the definition. So in statics, measure of dispersion helps researchers understand how spread out और वेरिड अ सेट ऑफ डेटा मतलब कि किस टाइप में आपका डेटा जो स्प्रेड हो रहा है मतलब जो रिसर्चर्स अंडरस्टैंड हाउ स्प्रेड आउट और वेरिड अ सेट ऑफ डेटा जो भी पर्टिकुलर सेट ऑफ डेटा हो वो आपको किस फॉर्म में स्प्रेड हो रहा है दिस मेजर्स प्रोवाइड इनसाइट इट हाउ मेनी द वैल्यूज in the data set different from each other so they will give you the insight how many values are to be different from the other each other. So we are just learning about in this we have range. So there are some points like range, variance, standard deviation, interquartile range. These are some points. So first we are just starting with range. So what the range is to be said. So range, the simplest measure of dispersion in the range. The simplest measure of dispersion is the range, which is difference between the maximum and minimum value. So this line is to be says. तो द सिंपलेस्ट मेजर द सबसे मतलब जो सिंपल होती है मेजर ऑफ डिस्पर्सन में वो रेंज होती है सो विच इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन द मैक्सिमम एंड मिनिमम वैल्यू सो यू आर जस्ट फाइंडिंग द रेंज वैल्यू सो यू आर जस्ट finding the difference between two values like the maximum value and the minimum value just like take an example we are just finding the we are just finding the range value so our data is to be starting with 2 and our data is to be end with 15 so our range is to be 13 because we are just minus 15 minus 2 is to be 13. So while easy to compute, the range is not particularly informative as it doesn't provide any information about the distribution of the data. So this line is to be clear, data between the minimum and maximum values. For example, if we have the following data set like we have 2, 4, 5, 8 and 9. So you can see the range would be 8. Why 8? So we are just see we have maximum value is to be 15 and the minimum value is to be 2. So we are just like finding the difference between these two values like we are just subtracting the 2 with 10. So our range is to be 8. So the range concept is to be clear. And the next videos we are just working on this with the help of data and I will explain you. In the next videos we are just work on practical. So what is variance? So variance tells how much the number in a group are spread out from the average or mean. So variance just tell us how many the number in a group are spread out फ्रॉम द रेंज मतलब जो एवरेज में कितने डेटा है जो एवरेज में स्प्रेड होता है सो द वेरिएंस इज टू से इट लाइक अ मेजर ऑफ हाउ scattered the values are to calculate it we find the average of the squared difference between each number and the average of all the numbers so for finding the variance we are just to find the average of the squared difference between the each number we are just finding first we are just finding the mean value and just a difference with and just subtracting with each and then we are just square finding the square root. So after this so we are just it's similar terms if we have a set of number like 2 4 5 8 and 10 so with an average we have mean value is to be 5.8 so you are just finding the mean value as sum these all values and just divide with 5 so we are just finding 5.8 value the variance is a way to see how much each number in the group different from 5.8. So you are just finding the difference between these numbers like 5.8 is to be different from 2. So we are just using the operator minus. So the 5.82 is to be divided minus to be the 2 and the 4 is to be minus is to be 5.8. So this is to be for all. It helps in understanding the overall variability in the data. So this will provide you variability in the data. So for example, the variance is to be calculated 7.76 with this data. So how this is to be calculated? So we are just finding the 5 point is to be mean of this data and we are just finding the difference of these and squared. So you can see we are just 2 minus 5.8. So you can see we have like the values to be 3.8 and just square these values and then sum when divided with 5. So you can see we are just applying this formula. So we get 7.76. You also try with your calculator and copy rough pen. So in the next video, we also taking some different data and work on that. So the next topic is to be standard deviation. The standard deviation is the square root of the variance. So we are just finding square root, and after this finding the square root, we are just finding the square root of the variance. So this is the definition of the standard variation. How to calculate this? It measures the average amount of variation or dispersion in a data set. The average amount of variation in the data. So you can see we are just finding the uh, amount of average amount of variance or dispersion in the data set. So it is a particularly useful measure of dispersion because it is expressed in the same units of original data. For example, if we have the following data set 2, 4, 5, 8, and 20, 10, so the mean is to be 5.8 and the variance is to be 7.76. And after calculating the variance, we are just finding the standard deviation with square root. So our square root of 7.76 to be 2.79. So standard deviation is to be clear. In the next video, we are just finding with take an example, and in the next video we are just finding with Python practically. So interquartile range, we have the interquartile range or IQR. We are just saying IQR. So interquartile range is to be what? It is a better measure of dispersion because it gives information about the spread of the data around the median. So they will give you the spread of data around the medium. So the IQR is the difference between the third and first outliers of the data set. So we have the concept of outliers. So what are sorry, outliers not, it's quartiles. So what are quartiles? So quartiles is to be a range of data to be exist in what range. So quartiles will say like 25% data is to be exist is then with this value, and 50% is to be this, and 75% is to be this. So the quartiles divide the dataset into four equal parts, like with the first quartile being the 50 to 25% percentile, and the third quartile being at the 75%. So, for example, if we have the following dataset 2, 4, 5, 8, and 10, so the medium is value is to be 5. So you can see we have 5 values to be median, and the first quartile is to be 4 because we have data this to be 25% is to be exist on this value, and the 75% data is to be exist on 8, like we have this the third quartile is to be 8. Therefore the IQR is to be 4 multiplication of sorry, 8 minus 4 is to be 4. So where is 8 coming? So we have see the third quartile minus the first quartile. You can see this is to be a formula, like we are just writing here. In the next video, we are just taking another example and clear this concept. So we are just discuss on keynotes, key takeaways. So measure of dispersion allow researchers to analyze and understanding the spread of distribution of a set of data. So we already learned about this. You can see that this dispersion allow researchers to analyze and understand the spread of distribution of data set. So the range is the simplest measure of dispersion, but it doesn't provide any information about the distribution of the data. Range is to be used, but it is not providing information about distribution of data. So the interquartile range IUR is a better measure of dispersion because it gives information about the spread. So this video we are just clearing the topic of measure of dispersion. So in the next video we are just learning about different topics. So thank you. Subscribe our YouTube channel, Digital Technology. Thank you.